Ouagadougou's dry winds carried more than dust, they carried secrets. Captain Ibrahim Traoré stood by the window of the presidential quarters, staring at the horizon. Since taking power in 2022, he had walked through fire, military coups, terrorist threats, foreign pressure, and betrayal from within. But nothing had prepared him for the quiet suspicion that now clawed at his spine like a whisper in the dark. His intelligence chief, Commander Ouagadougou, entered the room silently. "Captain," he said, lowering his voice, "something is wrong in the Ministry of Energy." Traoré turned slowly. "Go on." "We intercepted coded messages last week. They were using energy reports as a cover, sending information out of the country through encrypted USBs. We believe it's a foreign operative, possibly working with external powers who are not happy with our new alliances." Since Traoré began shifting Burkina Faso's alliances toward Russia and cutting old colonial ties, many foreign governments had grown uncomfortable. But sabotage? A spy? He clenched his jaw. "I want surveillance on every top official in that ministry. Every meeting, every email. No one breathes without us hearing it." A week passed. In the dead of night, deep inside a dimly lit room under the Presidential Guard's base, a team of cyber intelligence officers pieced together data. One name kept popping up: Jean-Marc Dembélé, the soft-spoken Deputy Minister of Energy. A perfect patriot on the surface. Educated in Paris. Polished. Always speaking of Burkina Faso's development. But he had three things that didn't add up. Frequent energy seminars in Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Senegal, too frequent. Secret meetings with a development consultant who had no official business in Burkina Faso. A second satellite phone registered under a pseudonym. Captain Traoré personally examined the findings. "He's not working alone," he muttered. "Someone is feeding him, maybe even guarding him." To trap a spider, one must first shake the web. Traoré devised a plan. A fake report was prepared, top-secret data about the country's uranium reserves. Fake but believable. Traoré had it quietly inserted into Jean-Marc's files through a compromised intern, a girl named Kadidia who had grown up in the north, near the mining zones. Within 48 hours, Jean-Marc accessed the file. 2 hours later, he met with the foreign consultant in a café behind the French Cultural Center. They exchanged nothing physical, just a handshake and a polite conversation. But the surveillance drones caught it all. Kadidia, wired with a mic, followed Jean-Marc that evening to a diplomatic cocktail. Posing as a junior aide, she watched as he handed a USB drive to a man with a diplomatic badge from a Western embassy. Traoré had his proof. But it wasn't enough. He wanted to expose the entire network. Captain Traoré summoned Jean-Marc to the palace on a humid Tuesday morning. The minister arrived in his usual calm suit, smiling. "Captain," he greeted, "I hope you called me for good news about the energy partnership with Norway." Traoré smiled faintly. "Yes, good news indeed. But first, tell me, what's your opinion on the Russian mining project in Kaya?" Jean-Marc hesitated. "Well, I have my concerns. Transparency, oversight. You know how delicate these matters are." "Of course," Traoré replied, watching him like a hawk. "But some say your real concern is not transparency, but who controls the resources." Jean-Marc's face darkened. "Captain, I'm loyal to Burkina Faso." "And yet," Traoré said coldly, "your loyalty seems to travel across borders." He nodded. The guards entered. Jean-Marc's smile vanished. "You're under investigation for espionage." Jean-Marc tried to protest. "This is absurd. I demand to speak with my embassy." But Traoré had anticipated this. The moment Jean-Marc was arrested, simultaneous raids were conducted. The foreign consultant was picked up near the airport, trying to flee. 2 ministry officials, who had been acting as lookouts, were detained. A secret satellite transmitter disguised as a radio antenna was discovered on the roof of an NGO building downtown. All tied to a single Western country with a long colonial history in Burkina Faso. 2 days later, Traoré addressed the nation in a live broadcast. Behind him were images of seized documents, USBs, satellite gear, and blurred-out faces of the captured operatives. "My people," he said, "you trusted me to protect our land, not just from the terrorists who burn our villages, but from those who come in suits, smiling, carrying contracts that hide chains. We have uncovered a network of foreign spies operating in our ministries. Their mission, to sabotage our independence, to steal our natural wealth, and to influence our military operations. They have failed." He paused. "This is a new era. Burkina Faso will be free. Not in words, but in truth. Let the world hear this. We are no one's puppet." The nation erupted. In villages, people danced. In cities, car horns rang out in support. The youth praised him on social media, calling him the panther who hunts in silence. But not everyone was happy. International media quickly spun the story. Some called it a crackdown on dissent. Others accused Traoré of targeting foreign diplomats unfairly. But the people knew the truth. The spy had been caught. Behind closed doors, another revelation came to light. One of the seized phones had a message, unread but encrypted. Traoré's tech team cracked it after 5 days. It was from a handler in Europe. The message read, "Ensure instability continues in the East. Discredit any Russian military presence. Target Captain T personally if necessary. His influence must not grow." The room went silent. Captain Traoré leaned back in his chair. "So it was never about uranium," he murmured. "It was about power. About fear." He realized then, the fight was not just national, it was global. A young, determined African leader choosing sovereignty had rattled the old powers. They were watching. They were scared. And they would try again. Jean-Marc was never tried publicly. Instead, he was quietly extradited back to the West through a closed-door deal that avoided international outrage. But Traoré had won the real battle, trust. He restructured the intelligence services, created new cybersecurity units, and built stronger ties with regional allies. He traveled to Mali and Niger, forging a Pan-African military alliance. And every time a whisper of foreign sabotage appeared, the people said only one thing: Captain Traoré is watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe for more.